Hi, this is Graphically Alex coming at you with all things fat related. If that's something that interests you, please subscribe. I love to have you. I don't have much to say today before we get started. We are going to be continuing Anna's story. Um, she's going to be talking about, I guess, lipedema and whatever else came up in the genetic test. So let's see what happens here. Okay.
Like made up hey, you're delusional. I'm just going to tell you that this is your diagnosis so you stop bothering me, like a pseudo diagnosis. When I started going through this medical process, that word came up again. And I was like, the made up disease. They're just telling me that because they don't want to say we don't know why you're fat. Instead of saying that, we'll give you a fancy, shiny word. You'll feel better about it, but it's just because we don't know. And that's literally what I thought for a very long time. So when I went to the obesity specialist doctor, I did bring up lipedema with her, mostly because I had received that email before. I'd had other doctors allude to that potentially being a problem, but did not understand the condition enough to actually say for sure if it was. And I just wanted a diagnosis. Sometimes you just want someone to tell you, like, yep, that's it. So you feel a little less crazy. Though, so I brought it up with her and she was like, yeah, like immediately, yeah. And then I was like, you're just gonna say yes. And she's like, well, we'll do a couple things. But yeah, it was kind of one of those things where like it's pretty obvious I have it because I don't have any weight on my hands and my feet with how big I am, and because I have orange peel texture, because I have certain ways of accumulation, because it's completely symmetrical, because it's in certain parts of my body. There's just a lot of things that indicate.
So lipedema is, most fat that accumulates in the body. We have peripheral fat. We have something called visceral fat, which is on the insides in our organs. And lipedema is a condition where the fat gets almost clumped together in a way that it will never go away with diet and exercise. So it's a type of fat that is different from the normal fat in your body and doesn't respond to the typical ways how fat expands and decreases. So it primarily accumulates on the thighs. Sometimes it can accumulate on the arms, but the character of the fat is also different. So whereas most fat is yellow and spongy, lipedema is typically more hard and isn't as mobile as regular fat. Lipedema is a real condition. It is difficult to differentiate between what is lipidemia and what is just, say, fat as part of general obesity. But specifically, lipedema does not respond to the general ways of how to decrease fat. And so you may be doing a lot of exercising and a lot of dieting, and you may never lose that fat.
And I think on top of that, too, I live a very public life. Everybody has the ability to see and comment on my life. So when I started talking about potentially having this condition, I received so much backlash that it must be just made up, which is crazy. Like, I am an adult woman with a good education, and still, when enough people tell you that you're crazy, you begin to wonder if you're the problem. So my obesity doctor did officially give me that diagnosis and was basically like, I'm out of my depth at this point. You need to go see a lipedema specialist. So we did some research. We picked a couple doctors, which I then flew to LA because they were all in LA, the ones that were pretty active in research. So I go to LA, I go see this doctor, and he's like, whoa, you got real bad lipedema. Like, it is real bad. You need to have surgery sooner rather than later. Now, I've got to go back to that feeling about lipedema. I still, at this point, even though I was posting about it, talking about it, because I was trying to justify my body, but internally, deep down inside, I still was like, is this a made up illness? Is this a doctor in LA who wants to sell me plastic surgery? Because also, that is what I heard from a lot of people online. I heard every single day about how I was taking the easy way out
Wow.
and that I was cheating. And
I'm just going to say, because I'm not super, super familiar with lipedema, all I do know is you don't want to massively overeat. Obesity makes it worse. Kind of the same things as other issues. It's one of those things. But the way she's talking about this is not how I expected her to talk about it. I'm kind of surprised.
that I was going to this doctor to magically fix my problems rather than, diet and exercise, calorie in, calorie out solutions. And so I grappled with that even through the surgery process, but I mentally decided if I knew I couldn't lose weight by making the healthy choices I'd made, then what was wrong with trying to get to a better body in this route? I just wanted to feel alive again, because I think once you have a taste of that lifestyle and you're like, wow, if it was just like 25% better than this, then what are all the things I could do? Because I was still limited, right? So I was like, well, what if I can open up just more activity, more movement, more living? And I think one thing that has always bothered me, going back slightly to the plus size community, is they never talk about that loss of living.
It's
Let's
true.
throw all of the thing about
It's very true. Very true.
healthy or unhealthy out about bigger bodies. Let's throw all of that out. Let's say that there is literally no health difference. There is a loss of experience and a loss of living that comes from living in a bigger body. So we proceed down the surgical route. We get in for my first surgery, and he goes, wow, your skin's really hard and fibrotic. He goes, still looking at you, I think I'm going to get in there, and I think I'm going to need to take I think 6 liters or something. He gets in there and he ends up taking 9 liters. And he said it was the most fibrotic he's ever seen anyone. So we're having a little bit of, what? That seems a little odd. But whatever. So we have this surgery. He removes way more. He says it's the most fibrotic patient he's ever seen. He said that my legs were literally like concrete under the surface. And I get through the first surgery and instantly my pain levels are entirely different. The first night in the recovery area, I'm dancing. I'm up on my feet dancing because they tell us we have to walk. And the nurse has to be like, yo, calm down. And everyone tells me, oh, it's the pain meds. Once the pain meds come off from surgery and elbow. No.
Well, no, I think if you have that issue and you have access to any treatment available, you should take it. Because it, again, I've always established on this channel, whatever issue it is, you treat it. Don't neglect it.
No, never went back. I was just like, my life was instantly better. And I was like, oh my God. And I still didn't believe that this was a medical condition deep in my heart. I still thought I was just fat, but that my legs were lighter and that's why everything was better. So of course I heal to the point where I can for the next surgery. I have my second round of surgeries. My second surgery was really intense. You get a lot of hormone release. So I got depression, but it was like weird because I've never been depressed. So it's not something I have ever dealt with. And when I decided to have surgery, I decided I would be public about it, cover most, if not all of it. So
I will say there's a lot of people that have so much skepticism over her story with this. And I haven't really talked about it that much because I don't completely understand lipedema. I know you guys have told me to watch a certain like documentary type of thing on YouTube about it. I always forget. But I really should watch it and maybe at least make a video about my thoughts on it. So I'll probably try to do that during January as well. But it's like, I don't know. I don't really know what to think. Part of me does believe that she has it because of the distribution and all that stuff. But there's a lot of people that are very skeptical, and to be honest, the way she's talking about it is very strange to me. I think it's super bizarre. So I'm kind of just like, what? That's how I feel right now. I'm like, what is she even saying here? Or what is this? Like the way she's talking about it, it sounds like BS. I'll just say that. It sounds like she's bullshitting. So, like on a tonal level. And I don't really know what's going on. So, I'm just going to keep listening to it.
While I was recovering from surgery, I started having these really weird comments about bagels. And I was like, why? I don't understand why I'm getting all these comments about bagels. And so I had to ask, what is going on in relation to bagels? I don't understand it.
Is she covering Bagelgate?
So, previously to having surgery, we recorded a video where my doctor had asked me to keep walking prior to surgery, even though my pain had increased significantly because I'd gone off of the Wegovy. So, I was no longer having any inflammation support. You also can't take Tylenol. So, you're basically like SOL on any type of pain relief, but you need to stay active. So, it's not a great time. It is not a fun party. You do not want to go to this event. So, I was in New York and I was like, I really want this bagel. Because I have to walk, I'm going to make myself walk 2 miles to get this bagel. Right. And I was like, I'll make it a fun little YouTube video for anyone who's dealing with chronic illness. They'll get it. Pain days are the worst. So I walk, and at various times during this walk, I have to stop and sit down because I'm in pain.
Oh my
And we
God.
get
I
to the
can't
bagel
believe
shop.
she's covering this. I didn't see somebody with a chronic illness. I saw somebody with a disorder in that video. I'm pretty sure I even talked about it as such, because the amount of emotional distress and just absolute, like, the way she acted over it, it was just so disordered. That's all I can say. And it'd be one thing to cry about being scared for surgery, or to cry about all these other things, which again, I'm sure she's very anxious about, which is why she's tethering that anxiety to the food, which is why when she didn't get what she expected, she snapped. And that's why it seems like such a bizarre response to people who don't have these issues. But I understand it. It comes from tethering all of these feelings and all these anxieties to the food. Remember, it's one of 3 things. It's food, it's your body, or it's the diet that you're doing. It's one of those 3 every time. So you're usually tethering it to one of those 3 things. And when you're anxious about something, you can get triggered, but it's actually the anxiety that's triggering you. So it can be, I'm crying about a bagel. I'm crying because someone posted a picture of me and I look fat in it. Right? It's that same type of thing, but you're actually crying about something else. Or I'm crying because I wanted to do this diet and I wasn't able to do it exactly the way I wanted to in that moment. But either way, any one of those 3 things should not be a crying event. It's not cry-worthy. Because the way your body looks, for example, it's something that changes so slowly over time that you shouldn't be surprised or shocked enough to actually cry. It's the same thing with food. Food is food. It's kind of boring, honestly. I know a lot of people are like, oh, I'm a foodie, I love it so much, but there's one thing to just like kind of have it as a hobby and be kind of happy about it when you talk about it. It's a whole other thing to cry over it. It's a lot. That's a lot. It's not normal. It just isn't. Like, I'm sorry. I could see being frustrated. I could see being irritated about it. I could see being sad about it. But to literally cry, to have a fit over food is not normal. I'm sorry. It isn't. And not unless if you're a toddler. It isn't normal. It just isn't. Like, let's say you cooked something and you dropped it and it fell to the floor. You could be upset about it and be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. Ugh. But there's a whole other thing to be like really, really crying over it. You know, you're usually crying over something else. So, and again, it doesn't mean that you have an issue if you do that once, but it's like, remember, it's all the other things that go along with it. And oftentimes on the BINGE side of the spectrum, you're really, really huge, right? So obviously there's like a system and a whole process and a whole thing that you're doing time after time after time after time after time. It's a long thing. And it's a lot of crying episodes. There's a lot of things about this, right? So I'm not trying to have you guys feel like, oh my gosh, I did that once, I must have the problem. No, it has to be like a systemic, like you're constantly doing it, or there's these constant things. And even the fact that she posted it thinking it was normal, that shows how disordered that was. It was not normal. It just isn't. And I think that's why she got the response that she got. And she sounds like she's still totally baffled as to why that upset people, or why she shocked people with that. Like I said, I'm not shocked about it because I understand it, but I think she's just shocked because she's so deep in it that she doesn't see how abnormal it is. But I think most people who have had those issues, they understand what she was doing in that moment. So, yeah.
It is literally just before close. I order my bagel and I'm like, I'm so happy I did this. Look at me. I can do hard things, which is something I really told myself a lot during this journey. You can do hard things. So I was like so excited. And I was like, let's just take a cab home so I can eat this laying down, because physically I don't want to move anymore. So we get our bagel, we get in the cab, we drive home. I get home to the hotel. I'm filming myself unwrapping it, and it's not the bagel I ordered. It's not the bagel I walked 2 miles. Now, to set context here, I'm having surgery in 2 days. I've been off of all of this medication that helps me stay regular
I'm anxious. That's what I want you to hear.
in a lot of different ways. So I am a hormonal nightmare, right? I'm also in a lot of pain. So I just start bawling over this bagel, right? I just am like literally buckets of tears, because this is all the stress of my first surgery coming
Anxiety.
out. This is all the hormones that are
Anxiety. The hormones are causing anxiety.
rolling around in my body.
And that anxiety is the trigger, and that's causing the response.
This is everything coming out. This is the pain I'm feeling because it hurts. So I am crying over this bagel.
Pain does not lead to eating. That's not, the connection doesn't actually exist. So it's not the same thing. It isn't the same thing, Anna. But to somebody with that disorder, everything leads to eating, right? Everything leads to that. Everything. So especially if it's very severe, which I think it has to be pretty severe to be at her level of weight. I'm just going to be honest. It has to be pretty severe. So it's like, it isn't good. Don't ever eat because of anxiety. Don't. It's deadly. Because why? Because anxiety doesn't necessarily end. Anxiety can go on forever, which means you can eat and eat and eat forever. And that's, again, it's a path to death. So tread very carefully. I promised myself I'm never doing it again. So, and I haven't, because it's not good. It doesn't lead anywhere good.
I was like, I just wanted this bagel, right? And then the next day,
Even if it was just like, she's like, I wanted to eat the bagel because I'm tired, she still would have just eaten the other one she got, and it wouldn't have been that big of a deal. It's a different thing. to cry and like bawl your eyes out and everything over it. It's just different. It's not okay. I'm sorry. It just isn't. I could see being a little bit upset. I could see you being like, damn it, you know, I wish I would have checked, or, you know, something like that, or this sucks, you know, that kind of thing. But it's like, to cry and bawl your eyes out, it's like you're not bawling your eyes out over the bagel, Anna. You're bawling your eyes out over your health struggles, over the surgery that you have looming over you, over all this stress. And it's really important not to put those anxieties onto eating behavior, because it's deadly. And it's serious to do that. It's not a good thing. Whether you're deciding to not eat because of it or you're deciding to eat because of it, it's a problem, because it can be endless. And I'm not one to be like, oh, you can't cry, or oh, this, or oh, that. Oh, honey, I've cried so much throughout my weight loss journey. But I can tell you, I cried about real issues. I cried about stuff that mattered, or, you know, I would just let the emotion out. Like when I was struggling with my car last year, I cried over it because it scared me. Because my livelihood is tied to my car. It was very scary to me, but I didn't eat over it. I just cried. I didn't cry over a bagel. I cried over things being super chaotic in my life and not understanding how I was going to make it from this point to the next, or what was going to happen. Things being so out of control. I just cried over that feeling. I didn't eat because of it. And I think that that has to be understood for people who suffer with this disorder. Is, you know, you don't have to actually eat. You don't. You will survive. You can feel the feelings. You can process it, and it will pass, and then it's done. And then you're not in danger of gaining and gaining and gaining. Again, don't make how you eat conditional upon your anxiety, because we're always going to be anxious sometimes. We can't control all of life. We can't. We don't live in a completely organized world where nothing bad ever happens, where shocking things never happen. We don't live in that world. So you have to roll with the punches and understand that we're not in control of everything, but we are in control of how we react and how we handle things. So part of that control is you don't have to eat because of it. I'm not letting you off the hook. I'm not letting Anna off the hook. I don't let myself off the hook.
Hey, I ordered the bagel and that's the end of the video. And I'm like, I got it. It's fine, right? So they pick this video up and they make so many videos about fat girl cries over bagel. And they turn it into a fat girl doesn't get what she wants, and so she cries. They erase the entire part about the fact that it had literally nothing to do with the bagel.
It did, though. I watched it. And again, Anna, to most people, that isn't a normal line of thought. This proves how most people don't have this disorder. That isn't a normal line of thought to most people. To most people, if you say you're crying about a bagel, that means you're crying about a bagel, period. Because most people don't have this disorder. So they don't understand the connection between trauma and eating behaviors, because that connection doesn't exist. And I can tell you that as somebody who's in remission, who doesn't have this problem anymore. I've been through very stressful situations, especially even last year. As I started to get healthier, I started to go out and live more, I started to do more things. And I would face trigger after trigger after trigger. Guess what never happened? I didn't eat because the connection does not exist, because it doesn't have to exist. Because in order for it to exist, you must reinforce it constantly for it to exist. It won't exist if you don't reinforce it because it doesn't make any sense. I'm scared about my surgery, therefore bagel does not exist. That isn't real. And when most people saw that, they just see, oh, she's crying about a bagel. Wow, she's crying about a bagel. Wow. And it played into a lot of different stereotypes and stuff, which again, there is not an understanding of this disorder whatsoever, which is a huge problem. I think it needs to be understood, which is part of why I'm trying to talk about it, because people don't understand it. When I saw it, I understood exactly why you were crying. I understood exactly what it was about. But that doesn't mean that most people do. Most people don't have this disorder, so they don't get it. And that's not a function of something being wrong with them. It's a function of your way of thinking is disordered. And most people don't get it because they don't view it that way, and they shouldn't. People shouldn't view things that way. It isn't healthy to view things that way. And you shouldn't either, Anna. If you would have gotten on there and just cried about your surgery and said, I'm scared, I'm tired, there's so many things I've been doing, you still probably would have had hate, but it would have been different. It wouldn't have been what it was. Because most people would have understood what you're talking about. Because even in this podcast, when I've heard her talk about the fears of the health issues, the searching for answers, the dashing of the hope over and over again, and all these different things, it's very sad. It really is. On a human to human level, it's heartbreaking. It really is. But it's just as heartbreaking on a human to human level to hear you completely lost in this disorder with not even a glimpse of any kind of awareness of it. It's disturbing. And like I said, I think people see it even if they don't understand it. They perceive it with Anna. And it seems fake. It seems weird. It just seems off, and it weirds people out. And I'm sorry. But I will say there are times when I'm doing this work where it is so strange to have two minds, or to have these two sides in my mind, where I can see it as a normal person now, and I can see it as the disordered person, because I've been both. And it is so, it's so strange, but there have been times where it has helped me, because I don't necessarily want to forget completely, because I don't ever want to go back to it. And I stay careful about that kind of thing. I think in part because I do this work, especially this early in my, post-recovery journey, because I appreciated one of the comments you guys said, where you said a lot of people that talk about this, they kind of get typecast, or they get obsessed with being in recovery, but they don't ever talk about actually being recovered. Whereas I do talk about being recovered. And I think that's important, because people need to hear that you can get out. There is a way after, but there is an after recovery process. Like I said, the feeling of not having it is like losing your religion. You can feel very lost, very listless, depressed, because this whole way of living is gone. And I told you guys last year, there were moments where I missed it, because I didn't know how to live without it. That's how I knew it was gone. Because people would ask back then, they'd be like, well, how do you know it's gone? And I'd say, because I miss it sometimes, which is horrifying. But it's like, I can't miss something if it's still there. So I knew it was gone. And I had to just find a new way to live. And it's hard, but it's so worth it. I mean, last year was I told you guys, it was so triggering for me, but I'm so strong after that. Things don't bother me as much now. It's like, I feel like I don't care about anything anymore. Like, it's really weird. And that's okay, but it's just like, I think it's really important to talk about this stuff more. So just so that people know that there is a life after it. And I'm living it, So I can see how normal people see her. And it comes across as very fake, toxic positivity. It comes across as disturbing on an internal level. It comes across as entitled. Wow, you're really that upset over a bagel? Whoa, what the hell? That's how it comes across. It comes across as childish, like a toddler throwing a tantrum. And it kills me because there is this deep disorder that runs through it. And she herself isn't even aware of it. So she has no way of explaining it. It's very sad. The whole thing is sad. And remember, people only have this because of trauma. That's where it comes from, primarily. It's not something that comes from the media. I will always say that. It's not a media-based thing. It is trauma. Because it's too much goddamn work to have this disorder. Something had to have happened to you. I'm just going to say it. It's too much work. Full stop.
The bagel was just the thing that I was crying about, but it was
Not
like
about
very
the bagel.
It's not about. And this is what people started to
And
say.
the
So
doctor
people
just laughing about it. No, that's not normal.
started commenting Bagelgate, and then started commenting it was never about the bagel. So this turns into this whole thing where people are just talking about bagels vaguely around me, and I have no clue what's going on, right? And they knew I was in surgery. They knew that I was having this major surgery, and that's the thing they decided to go in on, is that I cried over a bagel. And I'm just like, y'all, I just
You didn't lightly tear up over it. You like bawled over it. You had a whole moment. It was a lot.
surgery. There was no compassion for me as a human being at all. And then I begin to wonder, is it really worth going through this 2 or 3 more times? It's hard. Recovery is a process. Even with the great results I had from the first surgery, recovery from a
That
major
doesn't make any sense. She's not making any sense. I was so recovered. I felt so much better. Is it even worth it because people were talking about a bagel? Huh? What? Are you for real? What the hell are you even talking about? I mean, that's where, one of you guys said, I do enjoy your guys' comments on her. I really do. One of you guys said that a lot of times she sounds like she's gaslighting. That sounds like gaslighting. That is weird. It's like she's trying to make people believe that their reaction to a bagel video is somehow going to change her course of surgery. That is crazy. That is a crazy leap. That doesn't make any fucking sense whatsoever.
surgery is rough. So everything's kind of on pause, right? And I even moved my surgeries a little
And
bit
I'm
later.
not saying that that's her thought process in her life, but that's what she just did in this podcast. That's something she did right in this moment. She tried to make that connection. It's weird.
And I honestly, my doctor's going to listen to this and be like, you were considering not doing your other surgeries. I'm sure of it. But I was, because again, I thought I was delusional. I still at this point thought that this was a fake condition, even though I was advocating for it and talking about it. I feel like such a scam. So I started to have really, really bad inflammation post the second surgery. And I've always had issues with inflammation. It's always been part of the journey, but it became really obvious through this because they just took 22 liters total, so 50 pounds out of my body. And I was heavier than the day I went in for my first surgery. And that was crazy. Like, that was unusual. So they had me go see a specialist in Tucson. Her name is Dr. Herbst. So Dr. Herbst is
This
a board
is really going off the deep end now. I need to just hear this.
certified endocrinologist that is actually researching the genetics related to fat disorders like lipedema, for example. And if you know anything about lipedema, she is the OG. She is the queen. She's the queen. And I go and see her. I'm still having all of this inside. I'm still debating if I'm going to do the other surgeries. I'm like, is this worth it? Is this just cosmetic? I'm starting to have, with the inflammation, a lot of exhaustion and stuff like that, which is natural with inflammation. So she does two things that
I bet you she never stopped the toxic ritualistic behavior. She never stopped BINGing this whole time. And I think it's making her feel worse. It makes you feel worse as you do it. And you guys all know that. Anybody who's done it, you know it. I don't have to tell you, but I'm going to say it for people who haven't. You feel worse. When you're in a spell, over the days and the weeks, at times even months in very severe cases, you feel worse and worse and worse every single day that you're doing it. That's what it sounds like to me.
caused the aha moment for me. She's like, I'm going to do some, I don't know the name of this, but it is a thing where they do thermal imaging to see how congested your veins are. So they take pictures and it shows almost like a heat map where your veins are enlarged and trapped. So she does thermal imaging of my body, lets me see it, and I can see everywhere that I haven't had surgery is bright purple. On my hands, my feet, my face, and the places I had surgery, I have no congestion. So she looks at this thermal imaging and she's like, wow, you're super congested. We talk about some of the areas I have pain. We can see corresponding congestion in that area. She points to a bump on my arm, which I thought was a fat roll. I'm going to be very real with you. I thought it was a fat roll. It's right here, like where you can see kind of like a bump coming out of my arm. And she goes, I don't think that bump is fat. And I was like, oh, it's gotta be fat. And she goes, no, that's not fat. So she pulls out an ultrasound and she shows me what's going on under there. And it is a vein that is, I guess, leaked. And sitting under here, and this is the area I haven't had surgery at, I'm having in January, is just a giant pool of plasma that is just sitting in my body. And you can see it. It's wild. And that's when it clicked for me that this is a real illness, that this is a real thing, because I saw in my body the congested veins and I saw the pooling out in my arm. We also ultrasound a variety of different places that were not surgical yet and saw that all of
So she's saying that she weighed more than the 50 pounds they took out? That's really what she said, right? Oh, honey.
lower veins in the
BINGing, period.
body have been compressed and are not able to work. And the blood is traveling through the top veins, which have now expanded and are engorged. So that's what's causing a lot of the pain and congestion in my body, is because my blood is moving through 1/8 of the veins it should be moving through.
Probably ties back to your anemia.
Yeah. Well, we're going to keep going down this because we're not done. So she's looking at all of this and she goes, let me take a look at your thighs. And she looks down at my thighs and she's like, oh my gosh, it's like teeth. I've never seen this before. And this is where I just had surgery. So I produce very quickly, or at least we see from this ultrasound, scar tissue. I produced scar tissue at a rapid rate because I had literally had surgery 3 weeks before. I should not have had the level of fibrosis that I had in my legs. And she literally, like, this is the woman that's seen every lipedema patient in the planet, looks at it and goes, oh my gosh, I've never seen this before, which is not what you want to hear, by the
Never
way.
a comforting feeling.
No, not a great feeling. And then she goes, I want to talk to you about your genes. And this becomes the first time I begin to understand what these genes do. So she pulls her computer aside. She sits me down. She says, I want to talk to you about your genes. And she goes, you have two very interesting variants, and they're both related to the same thing. And she goes, they're related to apoptosis. And I'm like, well, what the hell is that? And I will tell you, if you ever have a geneticist explain to you what something is, their dumbed down version will still be too hard to understand. Because I literally had to be like, can you give me an even dumber version? I have absolutely no clue what you're talking about. But from what I gathered, my dead cells do not properly leave the body and they cause havoc. So that would explain scar tissue forming. It would explain estrogen that was supposed to be taken out of the body not leaving properly. It would explain inflammation.
Your obesity explains the estrogen and possibly a fatty liver if you have that.
Problems, not having, clear routes to getting things out of the body.
Well,
obesity does cause major issues with cardiovascular health. I don't really have to say that. You guys know that. And again, if you have these issues genetically, Anna, it would be very prudent to be even more strict.
What's interesting is, and it may be...
It is not an excuse.
Something different, but I don't think so, but apoptosis.
Oh, that's what it is. Yes. Okay.
Sorry. So apoptosis is the process in which a cell
yes,
dies.
That's it. Sorry, I honestly don't know
body
anything yet.
Clears the cells. No, you were actually explaining it perfectly. And it is normal for all of our cells to go through this process of dying and then regenerating. That's in our bone marrow, right? That's where we generate new cells. And so it is normal for our cells to die. There are other cells in our body, primarily it's called the macrophage. Which
she said that word.
Part of the immune system.
This is how she tried to explain it to me.
That then gobbles up those dead cells, and then they go through the rest of your body, and they're cleared. But a problem with apoptosis means that those dead cells don't actually get cleared in the proper way. And so probably all of the cellular material is then what is contributing to the fibrosis, which for people who don't understand what fibrosis is, it's like a thickening and like a hardening of the tissues, almost like a woody characteristic, I guess would be the best kind of way to describe it. Similar to scarring. Scarring is supposed to be a regenerative process, right? It starts by you have a cut, you recruit inflammatory cells. If you don't recruit those, and that's why it gets a little raised and red and swollen, that's actually normal. That's part of the normal process. And then over time, that scar starts to thin out, soften over the period of a year. So there's an evolution, and it's all based on individual cell mechanisms that help with this evolution. So it really does, as I said, a lot of it I think goes back to the genetics, which we're only at the point where we are able to identify.
Are they going to connect this to her obesity in some way, or is this part kind of irrelevant? That's my question. At least to the overall discussion of her weight.
Identify a lot of the issues. Now the next challenge is to say, okay, so now what are we doing?
Exactly. So essentially, this is the person that is most experienced in this who has never seen this gene before. This pairing of genes, and they are both related to apoptosis. There's limited information, i.e. there's no medical research written about it. It's either been hypothesized or tracked in some way, but it's not like there's no knowledge of other than it's related to this function, what it actually does. So now we know that these genes caused all my symptoms, the weight stuff, the anemia, the lipedema, the tumor, the thyroid issues. But we
The weight stuff. I wish she would have went into that further and what she means by that.
can't really do anything about it. So the conclusion of my story now, and then it's kind of a sad conclusion, but at least I have a team of people looking into it, is that I am, as it stands right now, I don't want to say a one of one because there's probably somebody out there that's also dealing with this, but for most of the people I'm working with, I'm the only person they've seen with this. So this is all likely genetic, which was great to hear, but a little bit scary because it means it's more complicated. So we've begun the process of sequencing my genes to start, and I'm going to mess this up because, again, this is so out of my depth of understanding, but they're starting to try different pathways to try to understand how my body reacts. This makes sense. They keep saying we're going to run these pathways on it, and I don't know what that means, but it means that they're going to test and see, I guess, if they do this, does my genes do something different? I don't know. But the goal is to see what is happening with that. What was the word?
Apoptosis.
I keep calling it apoptosis, and I have been calling it the wrong thing. So
Okay, I wish they would explain how that relates to weight. That would have answered a lot of people's questions, but I'm not hearing an explanation whatsoever.
apoptosis.
Apoptosis.
They want to see where else that's having issues, but they think that it's causing me to have stored estrogen. They think it's causing me to have that weird fibrosis that grows just really, really quickly, which explains why I kept gaining weight even when I was not having behaviors that would drive weight gain. And
Huh? Huh? What does fibrosis have to do with massive weight gain? Is she trying to say the scars make her gain weight? Like, what is she trying to say?
it's also potentially a different way of getting lipedema because it's genetically related versus potentially hormonal. I mean, it's all genetically related, but it's a version that they haven't seen in this capacity. So it's an atypical case. I guess that's the easiest way to say it. And it is unresolved. But at least we know it's related.
I don't know, you guys. This sounds wild. Very wild. Wow. All I can think of is what a justification. That's all I can think of. That's what's going through my mind. Wow.
To apoptosis. And anything I'm going to be doing at this point will help other people with issues with apoptosis in the future. Again, that's not a common thing, but hopefully, finding a geneticist that actually will look into it is amazing because that's hard. I was told I would never find one. And
we're just gonna finish this today, by the way. I'm done with Anna after today. I'm done with this at least.
Then also having the resources to financially be able to afford all of this. And I think, I hope as this series goes on, we talk about that a little bit too, because a lot of these things are not accessible and not affordable and not covered by insurance.
I'm sorry. This is crazy. This is going into... Oh my gosh. I just can't even.
Definitely not covered by insurance.
So, how does it feel? I know it's been very, very recent, knowing that your whole life, all of these struggles have been related to a genetic condition.
They did not connect that to her weight well at all. At all.
Something that you literally cannot control and had nothing to do with a lifestyle choice.
I just am blown away. I'm going to have to look at some comments at this. This is like, wow.
Or if you just had better habits.
I am still coming to terms with that. Even though
I don't believe it. I can't believe her because it's like the connection is just so thin. Like, I just keep thinking of scar tissue leading to 50 plus pounds. That just does not work in my brain. I just can't see it. I just can't see it.
I can only see the times in my life when I should have done better. I still, even with all of this, even though I now have accepted the condition, even though I now have this genetic insight and all of these other things, I still see every moment in my life when I could have done better. And there's still so much guilt and shame around choices that I thought
This
could
is
have been
very
better.
disordered. The way she's talking here is super, super disordery. Okay? Just all of that, like beating yourself up over failure after failure after failure. All of that stuff. This is very, very, very disordered. I just want you to know that.
And I have been
If this, I hate to say it, I'm gonna put it to you this way. I don't know for sure if this is real or not, Anna, but the way you're talking about it, it doesn't sound real. If it was real, I feel like you'd be a lot more calm about it and you'd just be talking about it plainly and clearly. So at the very least, the way you talk about it, it makes it sound like a lie. I'll put it to you that way.
been publicly pushing myself to make choices that I once perceived as bad because I think that I need to learn how to get over that shame because it's not healthy to carry that burden. Even knowing it's not my fault, I still feel like it is. There is a community of doctors who still do believe that obesity is the individual's fault. And it's not like
What the hell? You can't have it both ways, Anna. Are you a one and only, or can you put it on to every single person? You're trying to do both. I'm having to call bullshit. This is wild.
10% of our population is overweight. It's like 60% of our population. All these people are getting overweight. What is going on? Our genetics could be changing. Our food could be
Thumb
changing.
down.
Our environments could be changing. Our socioeconomic situations could be changing. What is causing people to gain weight? So let's take the morality out of it completely. Like, let's take the choice out of
They are obsessed with morality. They're like obsessed with it. I don't know what that is. It's so weird. That talking point is so bizarre to me. It's like, yes, to some people, you know, even for myself, honestly, I am religious. I do care about like gluttony, for example. But I don't have to talk religious about it because it's not necessarily a religious topic. It's very physical and very like based in physical reality, which again, pretty much any religion would have some kind of ban on overeating for obvious reasons because it's not good for you. It isn't good for anybody to overeat all the time. It just isn't. Look at all the problems it leads to. But again, if you're not religious, there's still plenty of practical arguments for not eating too much. Overall, your quality of life, overall the price of it, like the financial implications of overeating, right? Like there's a lot of practical reasons that aren't religious or spiritual. And to me, to hear this, like I'm one and only, but also everybody's the same as me. It's like, what? Wow.
it and say it's not a person's choice. So if it's not their choice, if nobody
And
would
to
choose
me,
this,
this is kind of like beyond the disorder. This is weird. I don't know what this is because usually disordered stuff, it's very focused on you and you alone. It's not usually externalized in this way. So this is some other kind of toxic thing she's doing. She could just be a liar, you know, she could just be lying. But like a pathological lie type of thing with this sort of externalization, it doesn't make sense to me. And I don't think it's related to the disorder. So this is something else. Because there's, at the very least, there's an intellectual dishonesty in I'm so different but everybody is like me. You can't have that both ways. There's an intellectual dishonesty in that, at the very least.
We have to start looking at this as something that's actually a medical issue versus punishing people. I have gone at great lengths to share my medical journey, which at times I've really regretted, to be honest. Like
The connection to her obesity is it's so thin in this. They did not explain that well at all.
it's hard. And even with some of the best doctors in the world voicing in on this, people still don't believe me.
It's hard to believe.
And
the way you talk about it, it sounds like a bunch of crap. And I don't know if it's the way that you presented it. It doesn't make sense. What you're saying here does not make sense. And like I said, this is beyond just the disorder. I don't know what the hell that is. That's weird. I don't even know. My jaw is kind of at the floor. That was like wild leaps and bounds and reaches. Like, I think your back just broke, Anna, from the reach. Because I just keep thinking, like, you have to make a choice. Is it you're special and different, or is it everybody is the same? It's like, and she tried to, oh gosh. Yeah, I don't know. And when you do that, it makes everything else seem fake. Every other part of what you're talking about seems fake when it was already difficult to even see it as a real thing. Then you're doing this huge lie at the end and like totally shifting the narrative and trying to do all this stuff, and it's not convincing. And I am just like, what the hell did I just listen to? That's how I feel right now. I don't even know.
Sometimes I don't believe it, even though I do. Like, it's this, I can't explain it. When you realize you're just this, your body is unusual. You're like, did they make a mistake? Was the genetics off? Like, what happened, right? I guess I just don't want it to be true. And I think the harder part about this is, like, I thought when I started the lipedema surgeries that it would just magically solve everything, or at least I'd get the body that I wanted and had tried for. And I will get that body for some time, but because of the way my body builds fibrosis, it may not be for as long as I want it to be. And, I'm going to keep trying everything that the doctors suggest to me and encourage me to do. But when I really think about it, it's like, I'm going to share something really sad, and I'm sorry I'm going to end this on such a sad note, but I was talking with someone the other week, and they were like, you're getting older. Are you concerned about not having kids? And I was like, I don't want to give them this. And the reality is I can. And that's a hard thing to think about, that your genes are bad. And I often sometimes, I'm sorry, this is so sad, this is so depressing, but I sometimes think about, like, am I meant to be alive? Because all these things don't work. And I know that that's just, me coming to terms with this, right?
So remember that a lot of times within EFOL by the letter D, there's a deep self-hatred that runs through it. And it is a form of, I have to be careful how I word it. Self-HARM. That's part of the deepest core of the disorder. And I think in this moment, I can hear some of that in this, and that's sad again. So I don't know what that weird speech she did was. That was weird. But this, I think, is part of it. It's that underlying self-hatred That's what I hear, like a true self-hatred. It's very sad.
And dealing with this, and like, obviously I live at the time I do because I am meant to be alive and I'm meant to probably do this, but I still feel every day conflicted. I don't know if that'll ever go away because there's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can do better. And that sucks. And as a type A
Yeah,
person,
I think she has some other kind of psychological issue. I don't know what. I can't diagnose her, but I wouldn't be surprised if she had some kind of personality issue, like a personality disorder, because some of this is just so weird that even to me it's running alien in my mind, and I just don't know. I don't know. I all I can tell is I feel like there's something wrong. That's just what I feel kind of in my core when I listen to some of this. It's like there's something wrong. This isn't good. This doesn't make sense. And again, I can only speak to that one issue, you know. So, because I remember when I was in it, I thought I had a lot of different, I thought I had a lot of psychological issues. I really, you know, because I didn't know what was wrong. And looking back, I see that it was the disorder. That was the only thing that was really wrong because it makes you crazy. So I don't know if that's what it is. It could just be like she's so in those behaviors that they're making her nuts in other ways. But it's like, it just isn't making sense. It just isn't. And again, there probably have been times in my life where I've talked weird and said things that don't make any sense like this. But I think it's because, like, that disorder, it does affect your brain too. It affects a lot of stuff because you fry your brain with it. It's not normal. Like, it's not natural or good or anything to do. It's very harsh. And years of it, I think it does a lot of harm. I do think you can mostly heal, but it's like, I wonder if she has something else going on. I don't know what it is, but she may have more than one problem, honestly. Because it just doesn't make sense. I don't know. It's just, it's really weird. That was a really, really weird thing. Oh my gosh. I want you guys to tell me what you think all that was.
who just wants to optimize and fix, I can't optimize and fix this. Maybe I'll get lucky and someone will have a breakthrough, but maybe I won't. It's out of my hands. It's out of my hands.
Well, if I could jump through the screen and give you the biggest hug, because it takes true bravery to be this vulnerable, to be this public in order to serve the greater good by sharing your story so that maybe one person won't feel alone.
Yep.
And there are so many just themes that for people who may not necessarily have lipedema or a genetic condition or an autoimmune disorder, just about what it's like living life with a chronic illness, what it's like feeling judged by your doctors, what it's like having to find new doctors, that I think so many people will be able to resonate with and really feel like their own feelings have been validated.
I think if I could end on a positive note, because I just feel like I just cried at the screen for a little while. I cried at the microphone for too long, and now I need to turn it around. Even though everything has been a lot, and it's, I found all of this information out in about a year and a half, and that's a lot in a very short amount of time. I don't regret doing it, because if we go back to that first doctor's appointment before we knew any of the other things we know now, even just my initial,
I do wonder if the E fall by the letter D, I wonder if there are studies or anything that show it causing other issues. I do wonder. I should look into that because I'm wondering if it's caused by it or if it's just some kind of comorbidity that she has, which it could be that too. I just wonder, um, because when I was so deeply in the disorder, there were times where I had borderline symptoms. I don't think I ever made it to like a criteria. So I would never, I certainly was never diagnosed, but I had symptoms of it. And I wonder if, you know, that happens to a lot of different people. For me, I think it really was just the E followed by the letter D, and it just made me crazy because when I stopped, all of that other stuff went away. Because I used to have like a really extreme fear of abandonment, for example. That was one of the symptoms of borderline that I had, and I don't anymore. And that's a really weird thing. And I guess I'll never know because I never got diagnosed, but I don't know, because they say a lot of people age out of it around 30. And for me, I would say I got over that abandonment thing probably by 29, kind of like right on time, right? Um, but I also wasn't taking part in the toxic ritualistic. So for me personally, I'll never know. Isn't that weird? I'll never understand. I know in people that do have borderline, it can cause them to develop that disorder. But as far as I know, like I had looked into the criteria and stuff, and I had never quite made it to what would be considered. So maybe it was more subclinical or something. But I really think it was just possibly just a disorder. I really should look into that more. And I'm interested in what your guys' thoughts are on that. Like, can this cause other issues? Or do you think it's the other issues causing it? Like, do you think, like, these are just questions I have. It's like, can it be, I'm pretty sure if you have some mental issues, it can cause that. But I wonder if having the actual E followed by the letter D can cause a mental issue or can cause symptoms of it. And like I said, I don't know. All I can say is since literally 2021, I never had that crippling fear of abandonment ever again after I stopped the behavior and I started recovering and everything. I started doing hypo recovery, all that stuff. After a few months of not taking part in this, it went away. So I will never know, but I do think it makes you crazy. That's the only thing I can say. But when we're not eating properly, it probably can make you crazy. It is a foundational part of life. So I guess there will always be some mysteries, even in my own journey, that I don't understand. But yeah, I don't know.
Blood work. I may not have made it through without some help. I would have been in the hospital and it would have been a much different journey. So, even though the end result may not be exactly what I wanted, I live a more full life now because I allowed myself to hear hard things. And I think that's the thing I take from all of this. I don't regret it. I don't regret it. I don't feel like I wish I didn't know, because at least now life makes a little bit more sense. And at least now I have resolved the issues I can resolve, right? Sometimes there is no magical solution to health things. Sometimes it's about persevering and learning to adapt. And I think that's where I'm at right now. And so it's kind of a hard situation to be in, to have to tell this story at this point, because the reality is there may never be a finite end to this. But at least I know, and at least I have people around me who are supporting me. And I think that the thing that really clicked for me is I saw my parents maybe a couple weeks ago, and they were literally all on the weight loss train most of my life. And just having my dad look at me and finally go, I finally get it. He's like, I finally get it, and I'm sorry I didn't listen to you. And I'm just like, maybe this story will help people see people in bigger bodies a little bit different. And again, it's none of my business what your health is. It's none of my business whether you're healthy or unhealthy. And the reality is I don't have the information to make that decision from someone. And if I can pass on a story that, you know, competes with the norms that we're taught, maybe people will just be kinder to each other. That's the hope, at least. Maybe they'll be kinder to themselves.
I don't think this did any help. I just don't. I think it turned into a jumbled mess at the end, and it's confusing. It leads to more questions than answers, put to you that way.
Well, I think that's a perfect way to wrap up. And I am so honored to share this platform with you and to get to be able to shine a light on other people's stories that are really going to make a huge difference.
I just can't wait. Like, going into this, I feel like it just is exactly what I wanted to do, right? It's like I want people to feel less alone in these journeys, and I think we just have an amazing opportunity to do that. So I'm excited.
All right. Well, until next week.
Until next week.
Holy crap. That was wild. I don't know if we'll ever be listening to that again. If they do one on obesity again, maybe. So keep me posted, you guys. Let me know. Please be my eyes and ears on Anna, because right now that was so bizarre. I'm like, oh my gosh, I never want to look at this again. But let me know what you guys think about that. Let me know if I was just crazy. Was I just not seeing it? Was I just not understanding it? I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. Let me know. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. I'll be back tomorrow. See you soon. Bye.